Hi everyone, my name is Isobel Marshall, this is Eloise Hall, and this is Bolt, Eloise's dog. And we are here in the Taboo office in Adelaide because unfortunately we can't be with you in Brisbane to celebrate the Dirrum festival. So we've kind of reframed how this session's going to look. Instead of doing a regular keynote presentation, we are going to take these amazing questions that Tallulah has put together. And we're going to pick them out and ask the questions to each other and just discuss some of the answers. So hopefully you get a little something from that. But before we begin, Eloise, can you tell us what Taboo is, what it's all about?
Yeah, so we are a brand of pads and tampons. We sell a certified organic cotton range of, pads and tampons. We recently changed our name to Taboo Period Products. We're really about the conversation of breaking down the stigma of menstruation, making it a really normal conversation so that ultimately we can eradicate period poverty. And that's the mission. So all of Taboo's profits are dedicated to our mission, and we have partners around Australia. We also partner with a company called One Girl. So it's a charity that work in Sierra Leone and Uganda. And all of their efforts are really to ensure that girls have every opportunity possible to attend school and continue with their life. So we do cover a lot. We're all about equality, all about breaking the stigma of menstruation, and of course eradicating period poverty.
These are the products that we use to do that.
Hence why I looked at products instead of poverty. So Izzy and I co-founded the company, and we've got another team member, Harriet, who is just over here doing some work. And then we also have a lot of amazing volunteers who contribute to all the good bits that you see on social media and in your email inboxes and all the rest.
Yeah, so let's get into the questions that Tallulah has put forward to us. We haven't looked at them yet, so this is going to be very conversational and very raw. Do you want to start by picking one?
Yeah. Number 5. What do you know about great friendship?
Ooh. So, as Eloise said before, Wiz and I started Taboo together. We started straight out of high school, so we were about 17, 18 years old. And we came up with the idea of Taboo just before we started year 12, but then it wasn't till we graduated that we really decided to commit our time and energy to making it a reality. Wiz and I were besties in high school from year 7, met in year 7, always involved in projects together, always involved in mad schemes. And our friendship really flourished through school. And that's when we decided we'd be good business partners, I guess. So we decided to start Taboo together, knowing that our friendship was a really great foundation to start growing the business from. And we also knew that it would be difficult along the way too. I think being in such a concentrated, high pressure environment as friends certainly has its difficulties, but that's really where you begin to learn what real friendship is, I guess.
Yeah.
And for us, that's been a real deep respect for each other, a respect for our differences as well as our shared passions, particularly this passion for eradicating period poverty. What do you know about great friendship? Okay, let's try and solidify that. What's a couple of words?
Trust, respect, and love.
Yeah.
And as well, I think we certainly have a strong friendship and a very long friendship. But I think as we have grown as well, we've also discovered what great friendship looks in other people as well as people who are invested in this very, exciting realm of Taboo. There's always a lot going on. I've really been thankful for my friends outside of the company as well who can just say, all right, forget about that. We're going to have a good time. And they're also quick to kind of pull you up on just kind of moving on and having a different perspective on life. You need a realm of friendships, I think, to have a good understanding of yourself. Yeah,
you're right, because it can get pretty overwhelming when you're with the same people doing the same job every day. You do need the balance that good friendship can bring. Okay, either regarding your work within the company of Taboo or just your personal journey in social justice, what is one of the hardest challenges you have had to overcome?
I would say I very much have a personality type where I see a problem, I want to fix it, and I'm quick to brainstorm the ways that things can be managed. And having a passion for social justice and issues that affect minorities in particular, I find it quite, because I take them so seriously and I have such an emotional response to big issues, it can be hard to move through the fact that, you know, you've got everything you need and you actually have the resources as well to help, but you can't fix everyone's problem at every one time. And it's probably something I haven't quite overcome. It's just still a challenge to every day wake up and think, to remember to be grateful, to remember the privilege that I have, and then to have respect and empathy for social issues, knowing that there is absolutely a lot that can be done, but thankfully we can all, everyone who has privilege can bear the responsibility of tackling these issues together, rather than it just falling on, I guess it's quick to think that, you know, there's only a handful of people that really care that much, but it's not true at all.
And sometimes when you're so passionate about a topic, like, you want to be the one to do it, but there's so many other people in that space as well that you can uplift to, and that just, I guess, echoes the importance of team and the fact that we all have different skill sets and different energy levels, and can only really provide a cause with X amount of hours and emotional capacity.
You do have to look after yourself before you can look after everyone else. I think that's probably the outcome or the learning of that, is that once you're looked after, and then you've got the energy and the, I guess, guts to give to the issues that you care about.
Yeah.
All right. Eloise and Isobel, was there a catalyst moment that sparked your passion for social justice? Of all the things to respond to, why period injustice?
Okay. I think both of us were quite exposed to world issues from quite a young age. We were involved in a lot of, I guess, fundraisers at school and organising events that raised awareness around certain issues. And we were really encouraged to look at the world beyond ourselves. And I think that was in the school environment, but also our family environments. And I think we found a lot of energy in that space because it gave us purpose as well. It's knowing where you stand in within the whole world gives you a sense of perspective that can be exhausting, as we've discussed, but can also be relieving because you get the sense that, you know, we're all in this together in a sense. But I think, very much those formative years we were exposed to a lot of this. When it came to period poverty, we were actually inspired to start Taboo after learning about the social enterprise model, so a way of doing business that takes advantage of the power of the business model. So, you know, selling a brand of product that is in high demand in Australia, that there's millions of dollars poured into every year, but then transferring those funds to a project that you care about or that's related to the product or service that you provide in your business. And we loved that model because we loved the sustainable way that it connected two groups of people at very different ends of the spectrum, people living in riches and people living in poverty. And we don't think that divide is fair. And so this sustainable business model really provided a sustainable way to bridge that gap. And that's when we started discussing the different products or services that we could incorporate into that social enterprise model. And when we came to pads and tampons, I think it struck a chord with us because we were young women who had our period had our periods for 4 or 5 years, and we had just reached the end of our schooling and we were looking towards our future with hope and excitement, and we thought the next steps would be studying more and then we'd find a job, and we had that to look forward to because of such a strong education. And when we considered that, or when we discovered that 30% of girls in developing countries drop out of school as soon as they get their period, so that's about 12, 13, even younger years old, we just thought that is such an unfair disadvantage. And just in the name of a bodily function that we need as a human race, we rely upon to keep reproducing. So that struck a chord, it hit home, and we just found it so profoundly unfair that we had to do something about it.
And I think, there are so many social issues that we care about and that are very potently, spoken about in this world. Period injustice is one that does affect and has the potential to affect half the population as well. And one thing that is widely understood is that equality is, far from nearly every nation on this planet. So the best and most practical way we believed to improve gender equality was to actually start with the biological functions that half our population have, and half our population needs support in as well. And there's a huge trickle-on effect of when you might not have access to period products, like you were saying, you don't go to school, that restricts you from having flow-on opportunities of having your own financial security, having your own employment. And in a lot of developing nations, a lot of these young people will drop out of school, get married, like as you were saying, and that's just gender equality in its essence, is the lack of opportunity and the lack of access based on your biology. So period injustice, it might sound niche, but it's actually one of the most practical ways to empower women generally, which is quite broad, and definitely applicable in every country.
And you can read stats about how educating women is so much better for the environment as well. So it incorporates all sorts of social issues into one particular topic, being periods, that we're particularly passionate about. As of January 1, 2019, Commonwealth, State and Territory Treasurers agreed to abolish the goods and services tax adhered to feminine hygiene products after 18 years of controversy. What more can governments do to improve period poverty and menstrual stigma for Australian women?
There's so much that can be done. We always talk about, the federal opportunity that we have for period poverty is to really make sure that everyone has access to period products in every public space, including schools and workplaces. We believe it's a basic human right. And we also draw the comparison quite often to toilet paper. We don't expect people to come to work or go to school with toilet paper in their bag, but we do expect that of half the population to do that with their period products. And periods aren't something that you can always manage or judge when you start menstruating, your first period, but also just your periods throughout life. They can be unpredictable, and we just think it's unfair that people have to bear the burden of not really knowing how they can manage that and when. So we really believe there's an opportunity for government to step in and actually support the population. We also like to bring home the fact that it's not just a women's issue. Every single one of us exists because of periods. None of us would exist without them. So absolutely, it's everyone's responsibility, and it's an introduction in the system of our nation that will benefit everyone, not just women or people that bleed. There's also so much opportunity to break down the stigma. There's so many campaigns that are focused on mental health and other really important social issues that we need to kind of change our understanding of. And menstrual stigma is a really obvious one because it does affect half of us, and we do feel the shame and the burden and the discomfort of managing or talking about our periods. There is an effort that the government can make to make it just easier and more understanding.
And that menstrual stigma isn't just annoying for the person experiencing it or uncomfortable. It also means that that discussion can't take place in terms of solutions that would directly help these issues of period poverty. When that discussion doesn't take place, we can't move forward and actually find those solutions. So it's a very practical issue as well. And this question also did make me think of medical research. There is a condition called endometriosis, which some of you may be aware of or familiar with. About 1 in 9 women in Australia experience endometriosis, which is this condition where the lining of the uterus, small components of that sort of tissue, grows outside of the uterus. And that can cause severe pain when the person goes through their period, part of their cycle. And there's a whole heap of other symptoms and issues that come along with that, and complications that can be really quite severe. And in the past, because of that menstrual stigma, because of gender inequality, and because of lack of representation or lack of people listening to issues surrounding periods, there has been a real lack of research into that area, and we can't come to medical health solutions without research. And so the lack of research has had a really profound detrimental effect on all these people who experience endometriosis and the debilitating symptoms that it comes with. So the government can fund some more research.
Do better. Okay. Although many see you both as the dynamic duo that fights period poverty and menstrual stigma here in Australia and abroad, that's a compliment. Eloise and Isobel, sorry. You both are still completing your degrees at university. Firstly, that is nuts. Yeah, it is. Secondly, what advice do you have for young people trying to work their stuff out? It's a good question.
Yeah, so Eloise and I both started uni after our gap year in 2018, and we did 3 years together in different courses though. I'm studying medicine and Eloise is studying business and international relations at different unis as well. But we both did full-time first 3 years, and then this year I decided to defer my 4th year, and then I'll proceed next year again. And Eloise has maintained her studies this year, but dropped back a little bit in terms of the amount of subjects. And I think the reason I highlight that is because, well, for me, I certainly thought that my uni trajectory and study trajectory would be a very linear line after school, and linear line makes sense, but things happen and unexpected things happen, and that's kind of what led me to decide to defer this year, and that's not, I'm not worried about that at all, because life happens and certain opportunities come forward, and if you don't take them, you might miss out on certain things, especially when it's all wound up in a cause or something that you're really passionate about. Sometimes you just have to make those sacrifices. So the point there is, don't try to do everything at once. If you can prioritize, because I didn't want to be a second-rate doctor because I was splitting my time too much, and I also didn't want to lose out on opportunities for Taboo. So that was a very conscious decision.
My advice would be similar in that, we've only got one life, and that's not a threat. It's a really exciting opportunity that we can dedicate that life to something that we really love and we really find passion and reward in. And in that tone, I wouldn't rush. There's no stress in, I think young people often feel the pressure on figuring out what they want to do with their life. And the amount of careers that we're destined to have is, I think, beyond 5 or 6 in a lifetime. And I think it's just, easy to feel the pressure of needing to know what you're good at, what you want to do. But if you end up signing up to these things that you might like or might do, and then you put all your eggs in one basket, or you kind of hold this expectation on yourself that you'll complete this, that, and the other, it can be more pressureful than necessary, and you might miss out on things that you really enjoy doing. So my advice is take your time understanding what you really love, and also just try everything. The great thing about being a young person is that if it doesn't work, then it doesn't matter. You just stand back up, dust yourself off, and go again. It's something different, or the same thing again. So it's easier said than done, but I guess just be a risk taker, be bold, just try the things that you love. And also, if you don't end up loving them that much, then there's no harm in beating yourself up. But we've definitely been lucky and very blessed in that we found our passion very early, and then have kind of tacked on some study to those passions, which has been super rewarding for us. And I really like that trajectory of finding the passion and then thinking, okay, what can I study to emphasize my input in this realm?
Yeah, I think something that we both learned throughout, or something that I'm grateful for, that we both did throughout our school years, was to say yes to a lot of different opportunities. We would swim at sports day and do random instruments and perform in random things and try or represent our school at various events, and that it's difficult because you don't want to say yes to everything and then burn out. But if you have the energy and time and emotional capacity at the time, certainly be bold in taking risks, because all of those things that we did at the time, maybe they didn't feel like it was very much, and maybe we were just like, wow, we're even here. But I think that the cumulative effect is that you're learning new skills, very transferable skills, things like diligence and commitment, and all these things that will serve you in any field. My turn?
I think so.
Within the last 5 or so years, Taboo has been helping thousands of girls and women in Australia and abroad. What has been one of your proudest moments? A moment that has made you realise this is why we do what we do?
That's a great question. I am really passionate about, changing structural systems that have a really extreme effect on the disadvantaged people that we have in Australia. We're in Adelaide, and I learnt the other day that 25% of the kids in this city are experiencing poverty, are living in poverty. And it's not it's a very wealthy city, and there's a lot of affluent opportunities around, but we unfortunately have a lot of systems that have a severe effect on people that aren't as privileged. So it's I guess I could bang on about the opportunities that we need to change, and we're so grateful that the system that we've designed as a company allows us to make significant change by selling a brand of products that people are going to buy anyway. So we've got this system called the Pad It Forward model, where people buy our pads and then we distribute those pads to other communities around Australia who support people living in period poverty. I just have so many, more personal conversations with people who run these programs and support the people that we donate our product to. And the effect that period products have on people who are experiencing poverty is profound. There is so much, joy and freedom that pads bring to people who might not otherwise go to school if they don't have access to period products. So I guess hearing the transformational stories of, the initial phone call that we have with that partner explaining the scenario of their students, to perhaps a phone call 2 weeks or 2 months later, or however long it is that they've received X, Y, and Z products, saying all of these guys are going to school, they're so much more confident, and this, that, and the other is the most rewarding feeling that you could receive when you're so passionate about something that once made you sad.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of emails that we've received in our inbox as well from people, particularly in more rural areas of Australia. I remember this one young woman reached out. I think she was a student, like a year 9 student, and she said that all of her friends, none of their parents spoke to them about periods at all. And she had felt empowered by our Instagram and our messages, and that meant that she felt comfortable and confident to absorb a lot of that information and then relay it to her friends who didn't know much about periods at all. When she emailed us and said, "Thank you so much for the confidence that you've given me to be that source of knowledge around this space." Even those little things, that we didn't need to provide any pads or tampons in that space, but a lot of this work is around confidence and a feeling of empowerment. Yes. Well, actually, I just wanted to say one thing to that. it's a proud moment, but for Mum, I haven't told you this actually, I think you'll find this nice. When Eloise and I started Taboo, we obviously told our parents we want to take a year off of it, we want to delay our studies, and we want to start this pad and tampon business. And I don't know what our parents thought at the time of that idea, but I do know that, well, I don't know what your parents thought, but since that, only recently, Mum said, I definitely didn't think it would go anywhere.
Really?
Which is like, oh, it'd be a nice project. We'll let them get it out of their system. Yeah. And then, and she was so supportive, but didn't expect it to be a company.
Right.
And then she said, and since then, like, we've had lots of milestones that we could say that we're really proud of here. But we had a podcast launch last week, and we had a little merch table set up. And Mum said that out of everything that's happened over the last few years, she looked at the merch table and welled up, because she's like, they're still selling merch. Like, because it was one of the first things we ever did, and I remember it taking a lot of effort to make this merch, and it's such a component of our advocacy. And the fact that we're still doing it, for some reason, she felt...
What?
Yeah, that was what got her.
Random. Okay. What would you say to a young person who can no longer walk past a particular issue and feel compelled to act, but don't know what is the next step?
Walking past a particular issue.
I think it's a difficult question, because depending on the issue, obviously depends on the next step. First thing I think you should think of is that you're not meant to know the next step, because if there was a next step, then someone would have already taken it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an issue, and it's probably a complex issue. Like, if it's not solved, it's probably complex, so don't feel like you should come up with a solution straight away. Second, I would say really understand the issue. There's, even with period poverty, it seems like quite a simple term, quite a simple problem. It's so complex depending on the religious, geographical, socioeconomic kind of background of the people that are experiencing it. So yeah, really deep dive into what the issue actually looks like. So then you know how to navigate your way out of it. Reach out to people that know a lot about the field, whether that be in the solution aspect or the issue aspect. Yeah, we're really grateful for the people that we just kind of drained their knowledge from them over coffees and I guess relentless phone calls, because they were willing to help us achieve our mission. So yeah, just talk to as many people as you can, and learn. And then I think solutions generally come naturally when you really understand the complexity of it.
I completely agree with that. And don't feel awkward reaching out to people in those spaces to learn more, because chances are they're in that space because they're really passionate about it. And if they can talk to, especially a young person with energy around that issue as well, that's only going to energize them more, and they're going to appreciate the conversation as well. So don't feel scared to open up that conversation. It could be as simple as looking up. It may be homelessness that you're really passionate about, and you might want to contact the Big Issue, a group that works really hard in that area, and you might want to talk to someone in that space, but don't feel afraid to start that conversation.
I actually did my personal project on homelessness
at
school, and instead I looked at what causes it. So then I looked at the 5 major causes of homelessness, and then made solutions for each of the causes, because and that's maybe why I'm bringing this up, is that often the reason that injustice exists is the opportunity for solutions, not so much how you can change the result, more how you can prevent the result from happening.
Who is someone who has formed you profoundly, and how have they done this?
My sister. I've got 2 sisters.
Ooh, which sister are you referring to?
Probably both interchangeably, actually. Yeah, great question. I'm like, I don't know. They are 14 and 15 years older than me, so they were a big part in kind of forming who I am as a person. They were very much my kind of they were teaching me how to be a human, a good human. Yeah, they've just been my best friends and my mothers, and I guess filled in a lot of roles in keeping my head on and keeping my adult and childhood life on track. Yeah. And I love them and they love me.
I would say I'd say my dad, actually. I think obviously mum and dad both formed me, but I feel like I can relate to my dad a lot, and I think what he's learnt and the experiences he's had in his life, he relays quite naturally to me. I think, yeah, we always have the same thought processes, so it's good to chat them through.
And they make the same sounds when they're thinking.
Yeah.
There have been plenty of issues this year to get women and girls marching on the street. Is there any connection between the work of Taboo and MeToo? Or if you had a viewing with the PM, what would you say?
Oh.
I would say too many things that would probably get me kicked out of his office.
Get women marching. I mean, the most obvious thing is that Taboo's cause and Me Too is profoundly affecting women, and that speaks to so many generations and decades of gender inequality, and this sense that women are somehow inferior physically and psychologically or mentally, and that our biology as we talk about like more so the internal biology, like the periods and menstrual cycle, but a lot of the Me Too movement can also engage conversations around like our physicality, and that's been taken advantage of for so many generations. So I think this, like, all of these people marching are really saying the same thing, in that we are absolutely as strong and capable as men, and we should not be exploited because of our differences. They just make us stronger and able to do other things better in a lot of cases. Yeah, but I guess primarily it's speaking to so many years of ingrained gender inequality, and that's something that so many groups are tackling in many different ways.
I think just the fact that when the rules of the world were written, women weren't at the table, and it's so obvious still today because both period poverty and the Me Too movement are examples of just how systematic the issues that women face so frequently, and there's so much pain that has been born from the systematic disadvantage that we suffer under, and I guess the elitism and the pressure and the influence that women have the lack of influence that we have to change the world that we live in. And I'm probably really inarticulate at the moment because I'm probably more sad about it than I am.
I feel like both of that, and we were just like, oh.
It's exhausting, and that's probably a good point, in that both are exhausting because they're both systematic. And the Me Too movement makes me really proud and emotional that we have a world of women now who are ready to actually stand together and support one another. And what we really value is, in a specific sense, the shared experience of menstruation. We think we're all in this together, so why not buy a product that will in turn support someone else on their menstrual cycle. Me Too movement is very much so, well, if you're going to speak, I'm going to speak, because we need a chorus of voices to make a change. And if we had a viewing with the PM, I think we've really forgotten the opportunity we have to engage women in leadership to actually influence our country in a beautiful direction and a safe direction and an economically stable direction. And it's a missed opportunity that has been missed for too long. It makes me angry, it makes me sad that we have missed out on it for so long, but I think the Me Too movement especially has given me hope and insight into the power that is coming, because all of a sudden we have generations of women that just will not put up with it anymore, and the more voices the better. I love it.
Yeah. And I think, in that viewing with the PM, I think, I would also say, yes, of course, we need more women at the table. That's a given. But they need to be listened to and believed as well. Definitely, we can fill as many quotas as we want to. But women have a hard time being believed. Like, even in our experiences, obviously, the Me Too experience is a hugely powerful example of that. But even just within this space of period poverty as well, being believed that periods do put us at a disadvantage, or even being believed that actually, no, my periods are really painful, I think something might be wrong. We need to be at the table, but we also need to be listened to.
And have the environment designed for women's comfort. Like, we don't have paid parental leave, it's only like maternal leave. We need actually systems implemented to make the environment suitable for women's leadership, and that's where we're falling short. Because quotas, sure, I think that's it's at least a thought process that's in the right direction, but how about we start from early days when women feel that, like, for example, walking into politics is actually an environment that they won't be sexually harassed, or they'll actually be respected, because that's, there are so many capable women of making brilliant leaders, and I do not blame them for not wanting to work in that kind of environment when everything is just impossible. It's a big old fight.
And you can't do your job because you're busy trying to deflect everything or defend yourself from everything.
Yeah, so we need a lot of people called out, and that's why I love the Me Too movement, because it's just shamelessly calling out the systematic, insert bad word, that lead industry. Okay, the end.
Eloise and Isobel, you both co-founded Taboo at a young age, fresh out of high school. Did you experience ageism, sexism, blondism, patronizationism, or any other ugly isms? How did you deal with them?
We've had some experiences. My favourite was a meeting with someone from somewhere who asked us if Daddy's money funded the company, and that was a meeting that was of quite importance with us. We came very prepared, and that was very disappointing to hear that response.
And that was echoed in a lot of the responses from the Australia Day Awards. A lot of comments on all the social medias were just about I bet her daddy just funded this after high school, or it's a pretty common thread. I think what is that like?
It's because people don't think that women are capable of doing it themselves without a man.
It's a combination of sexism and ageism, and isms.
I think ageism is quite predominantly subtle. Like, we often are referred to as the girls. Really, we're women. Like, I've been bleeding for a while. Could have a baby if I wanted. Maybe then I'd be a woman when I'm in partnership with someone that can provide sperm, have a baby. Then
she's a woman.
Anyway, so a bit of that. That's probably the most commonly. I
reckon ageism is the one that I get most.
Also, like, we're young, but people will seek to invite us to things and engage us in, like, an intellectual capacity, in that we've had this experience, yada yada yada, but then will, like, treat us as though we don't expect any kind of payment for our time, or, like, lots of expectations that perhaps wouldn't be held over someone that was more mature. And I guess we have taken on the responsibilities of any adult. So that's probably a common one as well.
I haven't experienced any blondism, but maybe it's just gone over my head because I'm blonde.
I think you just gave yourself blondism.
I did that on purpose.
Okay. I haven't either. Maybe if I were blonde, but
it would be interesting to see if you were treated differently.
I was thinking of dyeing my hair.
Yeah. we'll get the results back.
Yeah.
To the team.
I guess there's ugly isms everywhere, but perhaps also a bit of a survival mechanism I've perhaps engaged is to just ignore them because they're not worth your time and often not worth the fight, which is a controversial thing to say, but if someone is, you know, outwardly arrogant and really wants to make you feel small, engaging with that person often isn't going to change their mind. It's just going to waste your energy. So sometimes it is just a bit of a survival mechanism just to ignore it and move on and take on other opportunities or speak with someone else because
yeah, and I think that ageism, sexism, every ism, even if you do choose to ignore it and move on, it feeds imposter syndrome a lot. Like, I feel like subtle ageism, sexism can make you feel, if you're not careful, like you don't belong in a space. But that's I guess a personal learning to be able to navigate that and trust in your instinct and ability.
And use it as some fuel for your fire. We've definitely done that.
The fire's burning. Okay, we're done, I think.
Yeah, there were other questions.
I believe we're going to have like a 10-minute live chat with you guys on Friday. So we look forward to that.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks. Subscribe. No, we don't have a YouTube channel. Actually, do we? Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Isobel and Eloise, thank you so much for joining us virtually. So sad we can't meet in person, but this is the best we can do, and we're so happy to have you. The questions that you have been asked were amazing, and we loved your responses. Thank you. How did you find the questions?
They were awesome. They were really good because I think you curated them perfectly. We were able to talk through our journey and obviously our mission as well. But I loved that some of them were a little more off-center, which was exciting, and to explore that space as well. So great conversation starters.
So with your work in Taboo, it's quite amongst Australia, but also abroad. But you've also, with period poverty, you've also been able to incorporate different inequities with women considering domestic violence, and your work in South Australia with the Vinnie's Women Crisis Centre. Could you explain a bit of that to us as well?
Yeah, of course. Vinnie's is one of our first partners that we sought after in Australia. Period poverty affects so many people in so many different ways, and obviously when a woman is disadvantaged by her, I guess, physical place in the world, if she's fleeing from a domestic violence scenario, that comes with a lot of consequences. And one thing that we really appreciate Vinnie's for is that they provide for those women in the most basic needs so that they don't have to think about how they're going to feed themselves, I guess consider their basic hygiene and menstrual rights as well. So that was a really fantastic partnership that, we're really grateful that our product is of such use to these women in their times of need, because it's certainly an experience that no one wants to have, and the last thing you need to think about is your menstrual products.
There was also talk from the questions about the research behind periods, and especially endometriosis, and how that's kind of stemmed from gender inequality and the disparity. And it's kind of from breaking the stigma, we can be able to do more research. Do you have anything more to add to that?
Yeah, so it's a complex issue because certainly the reason that there hasn't been so much money and time and resources invested in women's health, especially around periods and menstruation, is because periods have been accepted to be a painful experience to a certain degree for many generations. And that's certainly the case. Like, some people's periods are more painful than others, but there are some legitimate pathological reasons behind that. And pretty much in essence, women in the doctor's office, especially more historically, haven't been taken seriously. And because pain is such a subjective experience, it's difficult to measure.
And so for the doctor or the health professional or the person that you're talking to, they really have to trust that when you say something is painful and there's no obvious physical signs for that pain, they have to trust you that you're being that honest, that it's really painful and debilitating. And in the past, when women haven't been taken seriously or trusted, or maybe been considered weaker or more sensitive, those pain thresholds and those reports of pain and other symptoms haven't been taken seriously, and things like endometriosis haven't been explored and investigated, or given money or time to. So there's certainly this aspect of distrust in that space, but there's also an aspect of a lot of women not feeling comfortable to even talk about their menstrual experience because of the menstrual stigma. So that's how it kind of all plays into one. And there's still a long way to go, but especially with social media and this platform that the general public has access to, and people sharing their experiences that other people can relate to, that's created this huge, incredible wave of awareness, particularly around endometriosis, which has really put pressure on the bodies, the health industry, but also government to flag this as a real issue that we need to invest in. So it's looking a lot more positive. Like there's incredible research efforts now going into the process of diagnosing endo in a more kind of realistic way, but also the government has contributed a substantial amount, not enough, but they have contributed more money into this space as well.
Awesome. Yeah, because personally what I found was so interesting about that is that, you know, women in periods aren't a new thing. You know, we've had them, it's been a constant issue. So the fact that now, and also through the work of Taboo, how it's, you know, breaking down that stigma, it's through the recent years that it's actually coming to light, and all this research is happening, and these women who are suffering are actually having the proper medical ability to, you know, be listened and be heard about their real issues.
Yeah, and it's so exhausting to be experiencing something that's debilitating to your to every single month, and then not be believed. Like that's it's impractical because you're still in this pain, but it's also a huge toll to your like mental health. You're constantly questioning yourself, like, is this in my head? Am I going crazy? Am I just really sensitive? No one's taking this seriously. Why aren't they taking it seriously? It must be my fault. That sort of like dialogue is really unhealthy and not fair.
One thing that I wanted to ask you both, considering you as women and talking and dealing with women so readily, what's one piece of advice that you would, if you had like 10 seconds to say to women and girls, this is my advice for you in the world and your place, what would that be? It's kind of a big loaded question, but what would that be?
I would say, similar to kind of what we were talking about yesterday, is that don't let anything stop you from doing what you love. Don't rush it. And obviously seek after the rights that everyone deserves, and equality is something that we can demand in a very reasonable context, so just go for it.
Absolutely. Love it. Well,
Sorry, don't worry, that was great. Don't worry.
So, can I actually ask if we're done? Okay. Eloise and Isobel, thank you so much for joining us virtually at Dirrum 2021. We are so thankful for you to join us. All the work you are doing is absolutely incredible. I personally feel so empowered by you two. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. Have fun at the rest of the festival.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an incredible job.